Welcome back to our Mittens with Kristin series. This is episode 4. We are going to start working on the Norwegian flower mitten. I'm Sara Delaney at One Big Happy Yarn Company, and this is my friend Kristin Nicholas, who brings her fantastic sense of colors to the projects that she shares with us, and we are so lucky to have you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Anytime. Kristin, why don't you talk to us about what we're learning in this series and what we're going to work on in this episode?
Okay, well, in the last 2 videos, or 3 videos, we made these beautiful Fair Isle Bargello mittens. And we learned a Fair Isle, we learned to do a certain kind of thumb, gusset, and decreases, a fancy kind of ribbing. So today we're going to be doing the Norwegian flower mittens. And these are a little bit more complicated, but not difficult. We're going to start with the same rib, a rolled edge, corrugated ribbing, and then we're going to go into this really pretty flower pattern. You're going to learn how to carry floats across the back because it's got a lot of this space here as opposed to the other pattern. And then on the back side of these mittens, it has this pattern.
I love that it's a different pattern on each side.
Yeah, and it's super fun to knit. You follow 2 charts, and at the sides, it's got this little design. It's basically every other stitch, and that will, it carries the yarn around, and then it changes. So these 2 sides are sort of your clue to when the pattern changes.
Yeah, that nice little band up each side.
And then on the back side, we're going to do a different kind of thumb. It's called an Afterthought thumb, which is a really clever way to make a thumb and super easy.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, really fun. And we're going to keep knitting up here. And then the shaping is in a V shape. This is how all Norwegian Scandinavian mittens are made, with a V shape at the top. Then we're going to come back, pick up the thumb stitches, which that's, if you've never done it before, it's a super fun way.
It really is.
It's like magic, basically.
Yeah.
And then we've got the same V-shaped tip of the thumb. And that's then at the very end, on a separate video,
my favorite part,
we are going to add all this fun embroidery.
Yeah. I mean, they're beautiful mittens on their own, but that embroidery just, it takes them to the next level and really personalizes them even more, and that will be the wow factor when you wear these mittens or when you gift these mittens.
So that's it. Do you want to get started?
I do. I really do.
Great.
If you haven't yet, you can stop by onebighappy.com and pick up a kit so that you can join us on this project. We're going to skip ahead a little bit here because we did already go over the rolled cuff hem to start and the corrugated ribbing. You can hop back to episode 1 in this series and learn how to make that cuff with us. We'll put the link above. And so we're going to dive right in to where the color work starts on these mittens.
Yeah. We're going to have a quick crash course in color.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a core part of these mittens. Yes,
right.
Please.
Yeah. Okay, so when I designed the original pair of mittens, there were 100 colors I could pick from this beautiful line called Rowan Felted Tweed.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that would really stand out. And you know, when you're all snuggled up in your coat, maybe you have a black coat, a gray tweed coat, it's really fun to have an accessory that's super bright.
Yeah.
And the fun part, you know, and it doesn't have to be the whole coat. It can be a pair of mittens, it can be a hat, it can be a scarf.
Yeah.
So these are super fun to knit because of the colors. So I started out with this really pretty blue-green teal, dark color, and then I moved on to these 2 colors, which are complementary. Now, complementary, what does that mean? Maybe when you were a kid, you learned about a color wheel, and most people forget about the color wheel. They think it's really hard. But the color wheel is super simple if you think about it as a rainbow in the round.
Oh,
and I happen to have this book that I wrote several years ago, and it has a rainbow in the round out of yarn.
Yeah.
You can do that yourself.
And then have a reference.
Right. Yep. So we've got, as you know, as any rainbow goes, the colors go round. So it goes from red to orange to a lighter orange to another orange to a yellowy gold, moves on to chartreuse, a little bit darker green, and then to teal, which is blue-green, goes to like a royal blue, and then we start adding red into it, so it gets purpley and dark purple, and then pink, and then back to red.
Right.
So complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. And when you use them together, the eye starts zinging, and it's like bright and fun and poppy. And so I use that a lot in my work. I love those kind of combinations. A lot of people feel a little bit more comfortable with analogous colors.
Okay.
And analogous colors are ones that are close on the color wheel. So they might knit things that are all just blue. Okay.
Or like blues and purples.
Blues and purples, yeah.
Okay.
And when I go to events, I see a lot of, knitters walking around in analogous colors. But I'm all about color, and I want people to feel a little bit more comfortable working with it. So if we look at our yarn that we've chosen for this project, we can see that, well, let's look at the mitten. So when I started, I've got these. I started with this, and then I've got these two colors, which are orange and purple, and they're opposite each other on the color wheel. And so they're popping against each other.
Yeah.
Then I wanted a lighter shade, but I didn't want white. I don't really use, I never use white in my work. I might use like maybe a taupe, but I wanted something fun. So this is sort of a yellowy green. And although this is not the yellowy green, and the teal is not complementary, they're actually closer to analogous. If you look, they're closer on the wheel. What's working here is this is a light color, and the teal is dark. So we're bumping light against dark, and that's what's making the motif stand out.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to have two colors that were too close.
Right.
Is that shade or tone? Because they
lightness and darkness is an easy way to think about it.
They'd get lost against each other.
They get lost, right. And it's almost like I think of it when I see people that are using those two colors. I think, oh, it's kind of a waste of your knitting time.
Because you're losing the detail.
Yeah. I mean, that might be what they're going for, which is fine. It's fine if that's what makes you happy. But as far as like making a piece of art, mittens are art.
Yeah.
And then
I really wouldn't want subtle in this design. I think you really want that motif
wow
to pop.
factor. Yeah. So let me give you an example of two colors that are going to be so close that the motif is not going to show up. So if you see this pink and orange, they are very close on the color wheel, same lightness and darkness. If you knit, say you were knitting up here and it was this orange color, this flower is not even going to show up.
Yeah, if you were using the orange as the background, it would be really hard to see that.
And sort of a waste of knitting time.
Yeah.
And on the back pattern, it would just
lost.
It would just look sort of like a mush.
Yeah.
So you want to pick your colors so that there's enough difference in the color value, which is the lightness and darkness, and in the complementary versus analogous. You want to choose your complementary colors, and they will show up more. So I'm looking at Sarah's choice over here.
Let's show you my colors.
So she actually has picked some complementary colors and some that are very similar in tone. So if I were knitting this, I would bump these two or this and this against each other because these are complementary combinations. This would also work. It's if there was a different blue, but you see here's her swatch and this is her cuff, and she's got using the complementary colors. And they don't have to be exactly opposite each other on the color wheel. They can be like that and that. So it's just that it's
across from each other.
Across. It's so that they're not next to each other.
Okay.
And it's almost like the four colors four shades, they're going to be all analogous. And then you could actually use purple against the green, and that would start popping. So the best way to learn,
like you've done in the cuff that we're going to work on today.
Oh,
You've
right.
got the
Where is it?
the
Where'd it
purple
go?
and the
Oh, there
yellow.
we go. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is purple
And that yellowy
and
green.
the yellowy green.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to demo on this, and I'm actually going to change up these colors for my demo, but you can see what I've done for my sample.
Oh, I love it. I love
So,
it.
you know, like color, you can spend your whole life fooling around with color. A great way to learn about color is start thinking color and going outside and looking in your garden, or look on the street, look in somebody else's garden, and see how nature is putting the colors together. You know, if you look at a pansy, oh my God, it's yellow and it's purple. And then it's green leaves. And that is like nature's way of fooling around with complementary colors. The other great way to learn about color is to go to a museum. It doesn't have to be a museum in a big city. It can be your local historical society that has a collection of possibly old paintings
Yeah.
from your area. And look how the artists are putting it together. If it's in a museum, chances are the colors are going to be.
Yeah.
And you can even look, if you look at paintings, if you get really close, you can see how an artist has fooled around with all the colors in like a small square. Like if you look at any Monet's paintings.
Yeah. You think that section is green, but then get up close.
And it's like 20 colors,
Yeah.
you know? So I've spent my life playing with color in all different disciplines, and yeah, it's super addictive. And just start. That's the best thing to do, is start.
Yep. Yeah. Don't be afraid of color. Just get started playing.
Yep.
It's so much fun.
It really is. And a mitten is a really great place to start because it's small.
Yeah. All right. So once again, the cuff is the same as in the Bargello mitten that we did in episode 1. There's a link up above where you can hop back to where we did the rolled hem and the corrugated ribbing. And now we're going to dive right into the colorwork pattern of this mitten.
Yeah. Okay. So in the instructions, it tells you to do the rolled edge in the teal, and then move to this complementary color range.
Yeah.
But for my sample, just so you guys know, I'm using a different combination. But to keep going, I'm going to work with the colors as shown on this mitten. That's how I'm going to follow the chart.
Yeah,
So-
it's really the fun of the kits. You can take those 6 colors and use them in any order that you want, any order that appeals to you.
Yeah, which is the great thing about color.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to look at the chart, and we're going to do 2 color knitting. So as you can see, this is the little dividing section, which is, if you look at the chart, it's every other stitch is either the dark or the light. And then we're going to go all the way across the first row, which is blank, which means we can't have our yarn float over all those stitches, because you'd put your hand in and your rings and your fingers would be stuck. So we're going to learn how to weave across the back. It's not weaving, but it's just how to catch the yarn, the floats. So I'll put that there, and let's start. Find my end. So I've got my 2 colors. Oops, there we go.
It's always a little fiddly when you start working with the 2 colors.
Yeah, especially this where we're going to be carrying it. But anyway, so so following the chart, I'm going to do 1 of the light and 1 of the dark. So I'm going to join my yarn. I usually leave a tail about 4 or 5 inches long so I can weave into it later. And I'm going to just knit 1 stitch. Now I'm going to join my second color, and I'm going to knit that next stitch in the dark teal, and then following my chart, I'm going to knit. So I'm working across, I'm I've chosen to go to continental knitting because I'm a little bit quicker, and that's how I'm comfortable knitting. You can do whichever way you want. So I'm going to knit whoops.
It's okay.
So the general rule when you're carrying yarn across the back of the work is you want to catch it every 5 stitches.
Right.
Okay? And it's a general rule. You can catch it every 4, you can catch it every 3, you can catch it every 6. But I learned way back when from Elizabeth Zimmerman, she said every 5, and it's in my head for years and years and years.
That's what's stuck in mine too.
Yeah. So I've got 2 of the light, and I'm going to do 3, 4, 5. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my long end, if I can find it. Here we go.
Your working yarn? Yeah.
Yeah.
Your darker color.
This yarn is a little bit sticky, so it sticks together.
It does.
And I'm just going to lay it over my working yarn, and that's going to catch it.
Yeah, and then when you pick your working yarn up again and knit, that catches it in the
It
back.
just catches it. And
and then another 5 stitches and
yep,
do it again.
and keep going around.
Yep.
Keep going as far as your chart goes.
Yep. So I do this same thing, but it's a quicker motion for me. I drop both behind, and then I reach under the color that I need to carry to grab my working yarn again, but it does the exact same thing.
That's probably the better way, but I've just never taught myself that, you know.
Well, and you knit continental and I knit
that's
English.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do this. Essentially, you just want to make sure that you twist these 2 colors together so that green color that you're not using travels loosely across the back of the work, but it gets caught every 5 stitches so that it stays close to the back of the work, because when we get to the other half of the mitten, we're going to have to do those 3 stitches again. So we don't need that green for 21 stitches, or in Kristin's case, the yellow for 21 stitches. But when you get to the other side, when we flip to the other chart, you're going to need that green again. So you can't just leave it back here and then have this long strand across the back.
Yeah, because it's going to be about 4 inches, you know. So the other thing is you want that yarn to float loosely. So like in how I taught you in the last couple videos about Fair Isle, what I do is I stretch my stitches out, okay? And that way I know that that is going to float. So the teal is floating, and it's nicely loosely floating until I pick it up again, and I'm going to knit a couple more of the green.
The only downside to twisting the yarns like this as you're going along is that your yarns are going to get twisted.
Yeah, they do. They get twisted, but then you have to just, every once in a while, you untwist them.
Yep.
And if you're watching your work, you can untwist them while you're knitting, so you just twist it the opposite way. Yeah. So now we're going to change charts, but we're also going to put in a couple stitch markers just to delineate your patterns. And after a while you're knitting this pattern, you can take them out if you want, or you can leave them in. The pattern is going to start visually showing up before your eyes after like 5 rows or something, and you'll be able to see. Okay, so I'm now switching charts, and in the first row, it's going to be all the way across in the one color. So we're going to have to carry that yarn all the way across.
Again.
But I'm going to put my stitch marker in here anyway, which is going to signify to me that I start my next chart.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to keep carrying the yarn, doing my little twisty thing. Mm-hmm. The ends in the very beginning sort of get in the way, but
they do.
But as you keep going, you can twist it easier without the ends. Okay, I'm going to go all the way around this next one. Twist.
I really do like the color charts because I'm such a visual person that if and there are written instructions about how to do this, but if it was just written instructions for me, it's harder to follow. I'm really such a visual person that the color charts make sense. And the great thing with these patterns is that there are also blank charts in your pattern. So it's just black and white. It's not colored in. So that if you are using a different kit than Kristin used, or even if you're using the same kit that Kristin used, but you want to use the colors differently, you can color that chart in yourself so that it's easier for you to follow.
It's nice if you have a set of colored pencils. And those sets usually come in like 24 colors, and you can start playing with it yourself, or markers.
Ask me how I color mine in. I have my Prismacolor set.
Okay, so now I've just finished working all the way around my thing, and I actually forgot to put my stitch marker after the 3 stitches because I was doing the same color. So on my next round, I'm going to add that stitch marker back.
Okay.
Okay.
So sometimes on double points, it's hard to keep stitch markers in the right place. So sometimes I will put them between stitches. Like actually I should put a different color one here. I'm just going to put a different color stitch marker here to remind myself that this is the beginning of the round.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yep.
But it's in the work because with double pointed needles,
they fall
round,
off.
Yeah, it's between needles. So, and then I'm super picky about different sections of charts, and so I like to have stitch markers where
around
those
each
3
section.
stitches are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that helps me. But use the stitch markers are your friend. Use them however they best help you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have a little case for them so they don't fall all over the place. And
don't lose them.
they I mean, they get vacuumed up really easy.
They do. They do.
So are you almost done with your...
I am. I'm ready for round 2.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to the other chart.
Yes. So we're ready for round 2.
Ready for round 2. Yes, let's go. Okay. So as you can see, I'm going to do dark green, yellow, dark green. And this is where I am going to add my stitch marker because I didn't do it in my first round because I forgot.
Yeah, it happens.
Yep.
There's no right or wrong time to put those stitch markers in. Again, it's just whatever works for you.
Right. Yep.
You could do this whole thing without stitch markers, or you could get a couple of rounds in and go, you know what, I really want that stitch marker. It helps.
Okay, so I'm going to place my stitch marker around my 3, and now I'm going to go across 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 5, I'm going to twist
Yeah, catch that float.
catch the float and do 4 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at the end of my needle. Do a little tug just so that keeps floating good. And now I have to do 3 of the darker color, the teal.
Yeah.
So
if you're watching Kristin and I knit with 2 colors and we each have a color in each hand and you're just hopping in to watch this episode because, geez, that looks super interesting and fun and you're a little nervous about this whole 2-color knitting thing, don't worry about it because at this point in the mitten you will have already made that 2-color corrugated ribbing that we went over in episode 1 and you will be old hand at working with 2 different colors. This will feel very comfortable and normal for you.
okay, so for this sample, I'm not knitting the whole thing across. I think, Sarah, you are, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mine, I was cheating, making it short.
Well, you're just working on a little sample piece to demonstrate.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to turn these into a full pair of mittens.
So I'm at the next part of the chart.
I'm
so
ready.
You ready?
I'm
okay,
ready.
let's go to the next chart. So now we're going to switch to the other chart and we're going to do this small little check pattern. This pattern is really easy to memorize. You don't even have to look at that part of the chart because the colors alternate every other stitch. So if there was the dark, then you put the light above it. Dark, light. And your stitch markers show you where you're going to be doing that.
Right, and that 3-stitch section.
Right. But then the next part of it makes this little circle with a dot. So you're going to follow your chart and you're just going to knit across just like we did before. You're not going to have to twist your yarn on these though, because it's a small stitch pattern.
Yeah,
so
you're going to be switching colors
right,
often enough.
Right. So I'm going to do one of the teal, and then I'm going to do 4 of the yellow, and 1 of the teal all the way across, and that's it. It's a 5-stitch pattern, so it's easy to memorize. Yeah. And it's actually a series of 5 rows that go up. And so that's easy to memorize. So the back part,
5 rows.
Yeah, the back part is easy. It's the front part of the mitten that you have to pay attention a little bit more to the chart.
Yeah.
But that's it. We're going to keep knitting until we have this much knitting done. Yep. And then we're going to do an afterthought thumb, which is really fun.
Yeah. So you're just going to follow the pattern as written until you're ready to place the afterthought thumb, or try the mitten on as you go. If you happen to have a shorter hand or a longer hand, try the mitten on as you go. And when you get to where you can slip your hand into the mitten and feel where the join is for your thumb, so this part of your thumb,
yep, the top.
That's where we're going to place
the mitten.
The
thumb, yeah.
Yeah, so when the mitten looks like this and it fits to this part of your thumb, we're going to stop and we're going to add the afterthought thumb. So go ahead and pause the video here. Keep working your 2 color charts until you're ready to add that thumb, and then come back and join us.
So now we're going to talk about working the thumb.
Oh, that's one of my favorite thumbs.
So you're going to knit up all the way to your thumb placement. And for my little sample, it's very short, so because we didn't have enough time to do that on air, and you really don't need to demo it on air.
No.
Okay, so this afterthought thumb, what it means is we're actually going to knit on a different strand of a scrap of yarn, and then we're going to knit across 8, then we're going to slip the stitches back to the other needle and re-knit it. So we're going to be knitting here, and then we're going to be knitting the next row. Again, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, it's really, the key is in the name, that it's an afterthought thumb. So we're really just going to essentially place a holder in the middle of our fabric so that when the rest of the mitten is done, as an afterthought, we can come back and add a thumb.
It's super clever, and you can use it to design afterthought pockets.
Yeah.
You know, so you can put a pocket down here, put a pocket up here. You can do all kinds of clever things with it. So I'm going to use this scrap of yarn because it's a different color, and I'm going to knit 8 stitches with it.
So this is for the right hand mitten.
Right.
So the thumb will happen at the beginning of the round. If you were to make the left hand mitten, the thumb would happen at the end of the round.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got to do 2 from this needle.
Yeah, and it's okay if this travels across a couple of needles, because in the end this will be
flat
fabric. Yeah. One of the key things with an afterthought thumb, you could use a different color of the yarn that you're knitting with, but we're gonna have to pull these stitches out afterwards. So I usually use a really sturdy yarn like a sock yarn or something, because I'm going to give a good tug on it to pull it out of these stitches. So this does not have to be done with the yarn that you're using. It's any scrap you have around.
Okay, so you can see my stitches. Now I'm going to slip the stitches back to the needle.
Back over to the left-hand side, yeah.
Right, and I'm just going to, that's 1 needle.
Yeah, so this little bit can be a little bit fiddly, but it's so worth it in the end.
Right. Okay, there they are. And so you're going to find that your knitting yarn is right there waiting for you.
Yeah, now that you're back.
you're going to knit across in the pattern.
Yeah, you're just going to forget that you just did that with those 8 stitches. So you took a minute, you knit those 8 stitches, you slipped them back over to the left, and now you're just going to forget that you did that and leave them in the fabric that you made and keep going in pattern.
In the chart.
Yeah.
So mine is 1 teal, 4 yellow, 1 teal, 4 yellow.
Yeah, and you just keep going with your circles chart. And it's that simple. The next time you come around, you'll just be working in the yarn that you've been working in, but you'll see that those 8 stitches sort of just sitting there in the fabric of your mitten.
So if we stretch it out, there they are.
They just sort of live in there for now. It's a placeholder that we're going to come back to with that thumb.
And then the next video, we're going to show you at the very end, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah,
we're going
we'll
to
show you
pick it
that.
up.
So after you've put that thumb in, you just keep going with your mitten. You will notice that the color, the forward color, changes halfway through, about where the thumb is, but it depends on where you place the thumb if you need to move it for the length of your hand. But those colors change where we change for the flower portion of the plant on the front. So go ahead and work your way all the way up until you're ready to start the decreases at the top of the mitten, and we will meet you back here in the next episode. Until then, happy knitting.